Hi, this is Paul at PATools, and today we're looking at the Data Toolkit. The Data Toolkit is our original tool created right back in 1999 and was the beginning of the PATools Excel Toolbox and has been on sale on the internet ever since 1999. So the Data Toolkit is a suite of tools which run on your data. And the basic principle is you run down a set of data like we've got here, and it carries out the actions that you specify on cells that it comes across that meet the criteria that you specify. So if we have a look at it, Data Toolkit, we have to do three things. We have to tell it where to run, what we want it to do, and what the criteria are. So let's have a look. We're going to just start with this sales data that we've got here. We've got the north regions 1 to 18 and the south 19 to 24. So we've got some numbers here, and we're going to initially just run with the defaults, where we're going to run on one column of data and we're going to stop when we meet one consecutive empty cell. So it's going to start running down here and then it'll stop when it reaches row 21, the first consecutive empty cell. And what are we going to do? Again, let's stick with the defaults. We're going to look at cells and we're going to stop and show me. And what's the criteria? For cells that, and I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say where the value is less than 100, and we will just go run, and you can see it started and it's found the first match at C5 where it's 25. We go next and it's found another one at 18 with a cumulative value of 43, and it carried on down till it got to here and then it's gone back again, and you can see 18 cells were checked, 2 matched with a total value equal to 43, and none of them were changed. So let's run through it again. This time I'm going to say stop on 3 consecutive empty cells. So this time it'll say, oh, there's the first, there's the second, oh, and it'll come back here and it'll say, oh, that's the first, that's the second, this is the third consecutive empty cell, so it'll end at row 31. And what are we going to do? This time we're going to do some colouring in. So we're going to make the fill a certain index number, and we've got some defaults set up here. Index numbers are basically 1 to 56, and you can set up any number. If it doesn't show in these presets, you can type it in here and click on other, but I'm going to make them bright red, number 3, and we'll stick with cells at the value is less than 100. So let's just do run and we'll say all, and you can see that it's gone down and it's found all the cells down to row 31, and it didn't act on 31, so it stops before the final cell, and it's made them all those where the value is less than 100. Of course, these empty cells have a 0 value, so they are less than 100. If I wanted to ignore those, I could do ignore empty cells here. So let's just hide the Data Toolkit and we'll see that in action. I will go and just get rid of all this colouring, and we'll run it again, PATools, Data Toolkit, and this time it's going to ignore empty cells. So if I do run, okay, do all, so you can see it's ignored the empty ones, but it's coloured in those 3 that matched. You've got all your history here until you actually close this down, and then it resets, and you can even right click it to copy it to the right click there, copy it to the clipboard, and you can paste it wherever you want then. So let's have another look. Data Toolkit. I'm going to close it down this time. We'll just go and make all of those, get rid of the colouring in, and let's look at 1 or 2 more options that we've got here. So we can specify all cells like this, and it says it's going to stop at column G and it's going to stop at row 29, so it's spotted the whole used area. But I'm going to go back again, Data Toolkit. Oops, I'm going to start it here, Data Toolkit, and this time I'm going to stop at, and it defaults to this putting a hash in when it comes across text that equals a hash. Now there isn't any text in there that equals a hash at the moment, but if I right click on this text button, you'll see it's inserted a hash in row C, in cell C29. So now it's going to run down here until it finds hash, and then it'll stop there. So that's quite handy, and if I right click again it removes it. and if I needed something different, I could do end here, hash like that, and I right click on there and just put end here in down there. So this time it's going to run on one column but stop at text, hash end here, hash. What are we going to do? I'm going to select this time cells that, and we will stick with the value, and let's do value greater than 500. So I'm going to do run. Okay, do all. So 13 matched with a total value of 9968, and 13 were changed. Well, actually nothing was changed, they were just selected, but it counts that as being changed. So if I hide this, now if I do Control C to copy all those selected cells, I can come over here and I can do Control V and I can paste them in. So that's very quickly found for me all those that were bigger than 500. And if we just quickly go and do an auto sum in there, 9968 is the total. And we go back to Data Toolkit, which we can also get to from here. 9968 was the total value of those 13 cells. So let's go back in with a clean one, Data Toolkit. So we've looked at this. You can get it to interrupt as an error cell or at a certain row. You can also look at the text, the value or the formula and see how they match, if they're less than or equal to or greater than, and so on. And you can use wildcards in here as well. And there's help on the wildcards at the bottom of the screen here. And there's also on our website help page, and you can click here to get to that. So let's just look at the difference between the text, the value and the formula, just so we're clear on that. Here's a cell where I put equals 2 plus 2 into there, which obviously is worth 4, and it's displayed as 4.00. And I can go and just display it with 3 decimal places, for example. So if we go and look at the range manager, different tool, but it's quite handy. It shows you here for cell E3, the font index is number 1 and the fill index color is -4142, which is the default. But here it shows you the formula, the value and the text that we were talking about. So you can see the difference. The formula of that cell is equals 2 plus 2. And we put them between the less than and greater than just to show you if there's spaces at the end, as there is in the text. So the text for the cell is 4.000 space, and the value in that cell is just simply 4. So you can see the difference there between the formula, the value and the text. The text is what displays, the value is the value that it equates to for doing maths, and the formula is any formula that's actually in there. It could be an equal sum formula, for example. Of course, in certain cells these might all be the same. So if we go and look at that cell there, region 1, and do the range manager, you'll see the formula is actually it's selected B2. The formula is north, the value is north, and the text is north. So going back to the Data Toolkit, it means that we can stop when we come across a certain formula or certain value or certain text. So the formula could be equals sum. So it's now going to stop when it comes to a sum formula. And we need to put in an asterisk and tick wildcards so it knows it equals sum, open brackets, anything, or just equals sum, anything, and it'll stop when it comes across a formula like that. So if we come and now look in a little more detail at what it can do, it can work on cells or it can work on rows, and there's various options, and it can clear cells, it can clear certain things, conditional formatting, hyperlinks and so on, for cells that meet certain criteria that we specify. It can copy and paste them somewhere, it can copy and move them, so a range of different things it can do. It can delete them, it can colour in the font as we've seen, or it can make the font bold or italic or anything like that. So we could say make the font bold for cells that the value is greater than 100 or something like that. Let's look in a little more detail now at the criteria. There's a whole range of these. You can have several of them ticked, so it can be looking for cells containing an error and cells where the font is red, for example. So there's quite a range of different things in here. duplicates, it can look for errors, it can look for cells containing links. You can work here with fonts, the fill colors are equal to or not equal to, certain properties, locked cells, hidden cells, wrapped cells, shrink to fit cells, cells that are aligned to the right. And you can work here with cells where the text, the value or the formula matches certain criteria, and use wildcards or not. So the star is a wildcard, but if you untick this then the star becomes a star. And you can even have an and or an or, a second one. Over here you can say I'm going to match any or match all of these, so it's got to be an error and a locked cell and the text equal to whatever. Or I can say match any, so if it's this or this or this, it'll stop. It'll carry out the activity. You can even here say use column B, for example, and it'll apply the criteria to column B, but because it's running down here, it'll do the activity, in other words color in or whatever we've specified, into here. And we can say ignore empty cells. So earlier when we said anything under 500 and it coloured in these empty cells, they can be ignored, not coloured in. So there's quite a lot of different options in there, an awful lot of things you can do, and it's particularly useful obviously when you've got very long sets of data. Here it's quite manageable because you can see what it's doing. The final thing is these options over here. Screen off means won't update the screen, so you won't see it working, but it means it runs faster. Ignore hidden means if you've got a filter applied and certain rows are filtered out and hidden, or if you've manually hidden the rows, then they won't be looked at and worked on. And finally return to start. If you uncheck that, then as we saw earlier, when we run from here and it goes down here, finds this, it ends up going back there again. If I turn that off, it'll run down here and it'll just stop there. It doesn't go back to the beginning again. And all of these you can right click to set the default how you want them. So that is the Data Toolkit in a nutshell. I'll do a final run. Let's close it to reset it completely, and we'll just take that out. So a final run with one or two of these other options. We're going to stop at row 29. In fact, no, we're going to stop at row 26. So we'll stop early. Okay. And what are we going to do? We are going to clear the contents for cells, and it's going to be cells that, and we'll just come back here again as we did earlier, the value is less than 100, and we won't return to the start cell, and we'll turn the screen off. So we should end up here, shouldn't we? Row 26. Do you remember we said stop at row 26? So it'll stop here, so it won't clear out the 85, but it will clear out the 18 and the 25 here. Let's do run. Okay. Do all. And it's done exactly as we said. It stopped at row 26. It's cleared out those two low value cells, and we didn't see it running because the screen was off, and we didn't return to the start, so when we close, the cursor's left here. It hasn't returned back up there. And that is the Data Toolkit. Thank you for watching. We hope you find it useful.